No Corinne?
She's running late.
She's our naysayer. We need her.
So did you guys go up on the roof today?
I did not.
Thought we were.
Tomorrow, I think you're gonna do that, yeah. I'm just joking, because it was like, you all came in together, kind of, I thought, oh, maybe you went up on the roof.
Be a nice day.
Well, just my thinking.
I'm thinking how I'm gonna write about these last couple of work sessions. And maybe hold off until
We have building and grounds tomorrow. Yeah. What time is that? 4 o'clock. We have 4 tomorrow, Dale, on buildings and grounds?
Yeah, yes, 4 o'clock.
Okay.
Got it in there no less than 3 times. Well, may as well get started, so. Yeah, a little after 5, we'll call the working session to order. So we'll go right for the superintendent's report.
Okay, you have it in your hand. Yeah. So I don't know if you had a chance to read what I emailed earlier. I know Robin was looking at the document earlier today.
Yeah.
Thank you for the
I was
edits.
like, typo. I guess another typo.
So hopefully I got most of those out of there. So I just felt after our discussion after the outdoor tour that we needed to just maybe refocus a little bit and try to decide what our next steps are and not get bogged down into the details. We'll get to a point where we're going to look at bids for windows, hopefully, if we can pass it, and then we can look into more specifics. So I'm not going to read through this, but on my page 1 draft, I guess the big thing that we all know is that we're after 30 years, any piece of property is going to have erosion and deterioration. And unless you do timely maintenance and upgrades, they just get worse after a certain point. And I think we're kind of at that with a few things. I just summarized kind of what our targeted facility assessment that WITSEF completed, and I wanted to point out and remind us that it was in depth, even though we don't have all their calculations and stuff, but they did have architects and engineers conduct an on-site review, and they looked at some of the reports, like Woody did one on the windows, and we had stuff on the roof that they pulled in to come up with their assessment. Budgeting, we talked a little bit about that earlier this week. So the cost is to basically finish the project, so it wasn't just throwing something at the wall. I mean, it's what they felt the cost would be to finish it, and they assume that the work would be done in 2025.
You've got 2023 in here. Is it 23 or 25?
Is that the old one, or is that one that you brought with you?
Oops, yeah.
Okay.
But it still says 23.
What page are you on?
Page 1.
Page 1? Oh, I'm not down to that part. So,
okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So, and then I went back and I re-listened to our December 18th with Brent when he presented this and pulled some of the information from that, because I know he had talked about some things that we were questioning.
Because I marked that because it was a it was a conflict out there.
Yep. So in this, the scope and stuff, I took that right out of our service agreement with them.
Okay.
This is where that came from. So at our working session with Brent on December 18th, he talked briefly about the soft cost also in association with some of the projects, which is permitting, design fees, that type of thing. So they were thinking about that. He did state at that time that they used 2023 pricing, And he did state that we may need to factor in some additional inflation costs. Because even if,
That was what
Yep.
I was referring
Yep.
to the other night, yeah.
so, and I'm assuming that would be on top of the 10% contingency that they are in there right now. So what we're looking at, we might want to circle back before the 20th board meeting and say, what percent or what inflationary dollars should we look at as far as coming up with final dollars. Page 2. And this is how I think, and this is how I broke down our facilities. I identified those things that basically would be the building envelope, anything that had to do with access and safety. The roof, I think, is a major item. In fact, at my admin meeting today, we were talking about that some districts have been dropped for their property insurance because of the condition of the roof. And I don't know the specific school districts, but that was something that was discussed. Because we all know about the storms and stuff and all the costs. I think insurance companies are concerned. So they look at some of our facility conditions, and if it's a huge liability that's going to cost them to replace, that is a concern for our insurance company. The masonry, we walked around, you can see the tuck pointing, and there's some areas that definitely that are deteriorating, and as we have weather, they're just going to get worse. The windows, we looked at quite a few examples of the windows. Kyle did check with the fire marshal for me, and item A talks about the egress windows, and that's primarily a residential requirement. Our school is a Group E occupancy. There's nothing in state fire code that would require classroom windows to be operable, openable for emergency escape purposes. So that's one question. We'll digress into specific details. That's one thing that when we're looking at our bids for our actual bids, when if it gets to that point, those are things that we can look at to try to curb some of the cost. Because we know no matter what we put in here and we start doing the projects, there's going to be some overages, because there always is with construction. Mm-hmm. So that's one item that when we get to that point, we can look at some cost savings with design of the windows. Flooring, we did the walk around, you can see where the cracks are. We did talk back in December, I think we talked about some of the flaws in the underlying cement that once they take the existing floor off, those things would have to be taken care of, because whatever the epoxy that you put on it is only going to adhere to what's underneath it. So if there's cracks and flaws, it's not going to cover those up. So that could be an added cost. The walk-in service, and the best example of it is when you walk into the main doors, and as you come out of the parking lot, you can see the curbs are cracking, and you can see the erosion on the sidewalks.
So are the curbs considered a part of the sidewalk, or are they considered part of the
I know
driving surface?
they did talk about, when they talked about the walking services, was to do something with the curbs. I don't believe they put in replacement of all the curbs, but we would repair as we need to on the curbing.
And I probably could have read it, but I can't remember, of course.
And I know we talked about options with piecemealing it, doing one tile at a time, or fixing just the broken spots. And if we were in year 15 after replacing them, I think that would be the way to go. But I mean, if they've gone this long at 30 years, I think investing into new walking service sidewalks would make it much nicer when you walk in. Your first impressions are important, and when you walk in and you see sidewalks are falling apart and stuff like that, or they're patched here and there. Not that that's critically important, but that does give people an
But there
impression.
is a liability issue as well.
With the tripping,
that.
yeah. So I know we have options with the walk-in service, but I think that would be a high target area for spending bond levy dollars on. The traffic flow, again, when you walk in, it looks kind of like a construction zone where we have the dividers for the buses. It's not very appealing, but it does the trick. I mean, it does what we need it to do. But I think at some point, if this facility is going to be in use for the next 30 to 60 years, I think it's worth putting the investment to do the traffic flow on the south and the north side appropriately. So those are the ones that I feel are most important, and they come out to about 3.5 million. The next list I have includes gymnasium, bleachers, the restrooms, pool room, heating system, temperature controls, kitchen, freezer, site equipment, playground, a little over $2 million worth. Those are the items that, we need to do something with the bleachers at some point, because if another motor goes, we might not be able to find it. Replacement for some time. But I think there's options that we can use non-voter approved revenues, whether it's our LTFM, capital outlay, to budget to replace those. The pool mechanic, anything with the pool, we can put on the pool levy. So that's not something we want to include with a referendum. We did go look at the boiler system and feel that the boilers, well maintained, can last the life of the building, but there's some temperature controls and updates that will be coming from time to time that we can budget within our LTFM to cover those costs. The last section, I took the athletic field complex and the support spaces out in that area. That's the track, the football field, and some of the other items that were included in the facility assessment. Those are kind of fit in both topics and are kind of separate. We do have our FEMA appeal that we're waiting on, and we won't have that till the end of May, early part of June. If we don't get the appeals, we'll get maybe around $70,000 to fix specific areas within the track. We walked the track. It's deteriorating. And at some point we need to decide, are we going to continue to host meets or not? I think that's a crucial thing, because at some point it's going to be a safety issue for kids to run on it if it's deteriorated. We did identify the pole vault areas. Whether we do a bond or not, if we're going to continue to do pole vault, we're going to have to fix that area. So it's just about $2 million worth of recommendations. I think some of those support spaces could be whittled down. I think the biggest thing is the track replacement and regrading of the football field and try to alleviate some of the water flowing onto the track, creating more problems. I'm recommending when I get done at the end that maybe this is a set aside alone question that you would take to the voters and let them decide if that's a priority for their tax dollars. So I'm kind of putting it not as important as what I just talked about with the roof and the sidewalks, but it is athletic programs that we offer kids are very important, as we all know, and being able to have that facility, because taxpayers invested in it, what it was when it was built, for many years to come, so if we don't fix it, it's going to deteriorate, and are we not, I don't know, or if you let it I mean, we're not really honoring the commitment to support the sports and athletics if we just let it fall apart. But it's expensive, and I mean, it's one of those juggling things. So that's, I mean, if we can't come up with a firm decision by the board, that's one option, is to add that as a third question. There's ways that you can question it so that our main questions that we feel are priority to pass would have to vote yes before they would have the option to approve the track. But there's different, that would be a way of bringing it to the voters and letting them decide how important they feel it is as a community. I talk about some of the non-voter approved options. We have our LTFM, we have capital outlay, our LTFM revenue for FY25 is $147,224. We are currently doing what I call a pay-as-you-go with some of this dollars for a bond sale that we approved in 2017. So approximately just under $45,000 of our LTFM revenue goes to pay that debt service. So basically we get about $102,000 for LTFM.
I have a question. So if we would pass another bond,
Yep.
wouldn't that payment would have to come out of LTFM as well, right?
No,
No, it wouldn't.
no,
Okay.
that's an option.
That's what I'm just
yes.
checking.
Yep. And that bond, our last debt service out of using LTFM is in fiscal year 27.
Right. So it's not going to cross over by much, you know, but I was I wasn't sure about that, if the new bond would have to go under that or not.
No, that's, we did that back in 2017 to eliminate any tax increase for the taxpayers. And I believe, I can't remember if that's the same year that we did the refinance, which saved about $2.5 million. And at that time we had talked about, do we do something with those extra dollars or do we just refinance? Our fund balance in LTFM for FY25 will be around $250,000, and that's after transfers. As far as some of our budget saving measures, we did put some of the allowable dollars for some other expenses that, like for appropriate staff members. Our operating capital revenue for FY25 is $97,000. Our fund balance is going to only be about $29,000 for fiscal year 25, and that's again after some transfers to cover other expenses that we generally would take out of our Fund 1 balance. I gave a couple examples about deficit spending. None of those I would ever recommend unless we're in dire straits as far as funding some of these projects. Voter approved options, building bond referendum. I put in there, if we just went with the estimated, the 3.5 million bond on just those projects that I'm recommending, the impact would be about $40 for homestead with an estimated market value of $200,000.
So what's and may qualify for equalization aid? What
Yes.
does that say?
That's a good Matt Hammer question.
Okay.
And I can look that up and bring it back.
Okay.
I'm not going to there's different tiers.
I
With
just
different,
look at it.
with different net, they look at net tax capacity, and there's like tier 1, if you fall under a certain amount, if you're in that dollar range, you get so much state aid.
Okay.
So you have $1 tax, you have $1 from the state, and then it gets down to a tier where all of the dollars are local. So
I remember him talking
Yes.
about that during
Yep.
the presentation now that you mentioned
so
that.
there's different tiers.
I I can't remember if you talked about
Yep,
it.
and I can't remember the transgression, but from so many dollars, you get state aid. Once you exceed certain dollar amounts, then it's all local levy.
And I think ours was all local when he talked about it, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'd have to,
Yeah.
I didn't,
I can't remember, but I just, when I saw that, I thought,
When he talking, the equalization was more of an urban, it was bigger school districts.
it might have been,
Tapped into
I
that.
can't remember
I don't either.
the detail
details,
about,
But I, like you said, I don't think we're gonna
I don't
expect
think
much
we
out of
would
that.
expect anything from that. That was what, you know,
but I can get you that.
double check with
Yep,
that.
yep.
You know, just the,
The next one down, capital project levy. Again, that's voter approved. Using the $400,000 that was demonstrated by Ellers, it'd be approximately $87 for a homestead with a value of $200,000. I did put in a sample question that Matt sent to me, and it's a little wordy, it's not perfect, but I asked him to do that because you can, if you read through that, it's fairly wide scope on what you can spend those dollars on. Our goal with this would be primarily anything related to technology for kids and staff, for computers, smart boards, also curriculum, but it can be used for a bus purchase. The advantage of this is that it uses net tax capacity, which spreads the burden over more taxpayers. Hypothetically, we could combine the bond and the capital projects levy into one single ballot question. There's pros and cons of doing each that probably Matt could explain better. But most of them that I've seen have been two separate questions. The operating referendum, and that's the advantage of that, you have the most flexibility on how you want to spend the dollars. The downside to it is that it uses referendum market value, which excludes seasonal, recreational, and ag lands. And as Matt had shown in those examples, you can see that it's quite a bit more of an impact on our taxpayers. So if we went in, I looked at more the dollars I threw here, doing the $496.50. One, it was easier to divide the numbers off of Matt's examples. But I was thinking, I think Warrow did like a $470 some for their district. We would,
47,000.
well, when you do operating referendums, it's a per pupil amount that you put on there.
Oh, operating, yeah, I'm
Yep.
sorry.
So,
I was still, my mind was still in the capital.
yeah. So to raise $200,000 with about a little under $500 per pupil, the tax impact would be almost $110 for homestead market value of $200,000. I've listed some of the things that we would benefit by having that extra $200,000, keeping small class sizes, offering quality programming, looking at school readiness, elective courses such as welding, co-curricular opportunities, and just help us to maintain staffing with dollars to be competitive. My final thoughts, at a minimum, I feel we need to pass a building bond referendum for at least $3.5 million to take care of our top priorities for our buildings and facilities. And I feel we need to pass at least a $400,000 capital projects levy that will allow us, because right now we're on a freeze for any technology purchases. So I think to keep their kids and staff up to date, we need to stay ahead of that. Plus it allows us to free up another $400,000 in our general one expenditures. which in my opinion, with all our budget cuts, if we just pass that, we would be fine financially. I don't see us adding anything back that we've had to cut the last few years. I don't think we'll be in that spot for a few years. That would take an additional operating levy to be able to add back some of the positions that we've cut, so.
So I guess my mind on the 400,000 was that it was only for 1 year, but it sounds like that's the first year, and so it's for 10.
10 years.
So we would have an additional 400,000 for 10 years.
Yep.
Which,
Yep.
that's
Yep.
I mean, that's some long-term stuff.
$4 million
too.
into
Yeah,
the,
yep.
yep.
And you say technology, but say
It's-
we needed a bus.
Yes,
we would
yes,
have
if
to-
you look, at
You can.
all the
yeah.
things,
Yeah. Like
in the
all
sample
this
question,
detail, yeah.
So year one, we could say we're gonna add back some of the stuff we had to take away, but
the technology we could add back.
Yep.
But some of the staffing positions,
yeah.
unless it's related to technology
Right.
or a capital expense.
But you could pay a position out of this, and then that would free up money in your,
Yeah, like Billy Chambers, we could pay his
pay
salary
a
out of that,
salary out
couldn't
of
we?
it.
Yeah.
And is there anybody else who sort of qualifies on that, just Diane Lane?
That was one of our budget cuts. We had an IT help desk person.
What about the library person? Are they considered a media? Since I think we had that
Now we're getting
combo.
into the weeds, but yeah, I think we could have to do a little bit of research.
And who monitors that then?
The state.
Like, the state does,
Yeah.
yeah. Because I mean, I feel like it's.
Because then you're coding them to that.
Yeah.
And if the state says, no,
Yeah.
it can't be, it doesn't qualify, then
But
you're
all
kicking
your
them out.
software that.
But everything that we're
Yeah.
funding there
The
now is
curriculum.
coming out of our
General fund.
Yeah.
Right,
Correct.
so
Yep.
anything we can create is
Yeah.
gonna
Yep.
enhance that general fund or application elsewhere.
Yep.
I think the capital one is a
Where did the
no-brainer.
400,000 come from? Where'd that number? That was when that.
That was
What
one
did
that
you
they
say,
proposed.
the capital projects levy is a no-brainer?
Yeah.
I agree.
The $400,000
Came from,
comes from, we looked at what are our typical expenses for technology and listing all the things.
Curriculum. is
Curriculum.
huge, you know,
Yeah.
It's
because that's.
it's
an
over
expensive-
300,000. If you throw a bus in there, that's 80,000-90,000.
Yeah.
What is
Well,
that
and
bus
including
situation?
without limitations,
What is
costs
that bus
related to
situation
deferred
like?
maintenance and
I was just
renovation
wondering if it's going
projects.
to be a
Mhm.
no.
You know,
Yes.
so there's, it's pretty open.
A
Yep.
little lower.
Or too many buses or?
I mean, I don't.
Not
Do you
desperate
think
yet,
that'll
though?
be a?
2027
That,
is the year we
Desperate.
put.
yeah, nothing is really falling apart on me. I think I've got one extra bus in the fleet, so if we ever do go out, I would recommend trading in two for one.
When's desperate?
You know, downsize the fleet one
When do we get desperate?
in a couple of years.
27, didn't you say?
When John said we could make 2 years.
Yeah.
He was
that's
right.
FY27 was
In 2 years.
what we had discussed as we better start addressing
Right
our bus
now,
fleet.
for what we put on for miles, that would put us with 3 buses at 200,000 miles for that year.
And then would that be a bus each year for 3 years or
That'll
just?
probably be a bus a year for the next 10, but
Yeah, that's,
You know,
it
because
wouldn't
now-
just be 2027.
what is it?
No.
We're
No,
at-
that would
you
be the
know,
start of
this
starting.
would
that we have to
provide,
replace the bus.
this 400,000 would provide us an avenue to do that, because
Mhm.
it's for
Yep.
10 years, so.
You know,
I guess
so
I-
we're
I
adding
missed
age, but
that.
we're not bringing in any younger stock on the bottom end. You know, so the whole thing is aging upward right now.
There's a lot.
I just want to make sure
They're
it's
gonna
going to be
mandate we
enough.
have all electric buses.
I mean,
Wait for
should
that.
we a little
The
more?
400 I'm
You
okay
won't
with.
be able to
Yeah.
afford the
I-
electrical
The
upgrade
cap,
to do that.
the building,
We have to run
I'm
it
not
off the
okay
diesel
with the
generator.
3.5.
You
I think
need
it
another
needs to
one
be
of
more
those.
like 4 million.
So you think the 400 is okay?
I mean, that's what I
It's-
feel.
Yeah, I mean,
That's just
if we
my
pass
thought.
that, that
It's
would
like-
give us some breathing room with our operating budget. We could start ordering technology, curriculum. But I don't think,
I just wanted to make sure it was enough. We're going
Yep.
to go ask.
Yep. Yeah.
Should ask for.
But we
that.
still have to look at our enrollment, and we still have to be prudent, and we
Right.
just can't go crazy and
No.
make a bunch of
No,
new
no,
positions
no.
and stuff. I mean, it's gotta,
Yeah, we're still looking at a decreasing trend for population.
Because what
Yeah.
is our kindergarten class next year? estimated
right around
to be?
30.
Right around 30.
Right around
we're
30, I
losing
believe.
36.
Yeah.
That was in one of the.
Yeah.
So,
Passing the building bond, I think, with just the minimum stuff, would take care of our greatest needs. And passing the projects, the capital projects levy, would help us maintain what we have without adding back any cuts, other than the technology freeze and stuff like that. And if you look at, and I was gonna bring it, but I forgot, the projection model that Todd, that we looked at, I don't know, a couple weeks or a couple months ago. If you look at the increase in the fund balance, and if you look at the increases over time, gets smaller as we project smaller enrollment. So I think, was it 2028, we projected fund balance of around 13%.
Yeah, 1.2 million or something.
Yeah,
And that
You
was
know.
without a,
that is a hard freeze.
yeah,
That was
We
with no
don't, we
extra-
stay with our cuts. That's,
so I think maybe our last meeting, someone thought that I did not support the building bond. I do. I just want to make sure that we're asking for the appropriate amount of money. And I don't think that we should go for less than 4 million.
Yep.
What I did was I looked at 10%, I looked at 15%, and 10% is not 4 million. And what I'm saying is that in the inflation, by the time we get this done, you know, between 23 and 25, or maybe some of them even into 26, we're gonna need that much money. Now, that's just maybe my conservative nature, and knowing that a lot of times when you go out for bids, things do not come in like you planned. And I think it's important to have that. You know, and I think we can take each project and apply a percentage to it. And yes, if we are able to save any money, that's great. But I think that we need to be covered to get the windows, the roof, the walking
Infrastructure.
surfaces, and get everything done like we should, without ending up and say, well, we're gonna have to cut this project because something else is not funded appropriately. But it's not that I don't think we should do it, I do. I just think that we need to make sure that we have enough money.
I see 4 million, it sounds like a big number when you start talking to a voter about $4 million, but it's over 10 years, and like you said, with
Right.
all the added ramp-up costs you're gonna get in that time, it's not that big a number when you start throwing $400,000 a year at the projects that we're throwing out there.
Right,
So-
and then to say, yeah, you know, to me, it's kind of like, you know, I worry about, do we have a construction manager in that, or are we gonna manage all the projects? You know, those are things that are, you know,
and that's a big piece right now is,
oh, yeah.
yeah, it's huge.
And that's why I think
How
that we
do you-
need to
Yeah.
make sure that we have enough money to cover that. You know, and I would say like the roofing, you know, we're not doing any building per se. The contractor that does it, you know, should be able to manage that part of the project. But, you know, you have to make sure that they're bonded. You know,
Yep.
those kinds of things are really important.
and that's something that possibly Woodseth could provide.
And I think Woodseth, it will provide us
Yep.
that guidance. I don't
Yep.
worry about that. But, you know, there might be additional costs for Woodseth.
Yep.
And I
Yep.
mean, we just need to make sure that
And
that
we
we're covered. I don't
also,
know. I mean, what
we
your
also
thought
have
is,
a service agreement with Brian Bolter.
Mhm.
And I want to say there was something in there about being project manager.
You know, and
You know,
what I
so-
feel like is every one of these can stand on its own.
Yep.
So we probably should be okay. We don't need someone to manage the 6 projects. We just, I don't know. What's your idea, Boyd? You guys manage projects all the time yourself.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's nothing,
Yeah.
for the most part, like the windows and the roof and all that, the contractors.
Yeah,
to
yeah.
manage it, just like you said, so.
But do you make sure that all your contractors are bonded?
Oh, yeah, that's part of the,
You know,
that's part of the
bidding
bid
process.
process.
Well, I know, but
Yeah.
I've heard of people that haven't done that.
Well, these would go out.
Supposed to.
Well, no, but I have heard of projects
We wouldn't
around
think
Lake of
it's
the Woods
part of
County
like
that
a
that was not
package.
done.
Yeah.
I know for,
Yeah,
well,
just
I know for us, it's legal.
Yeah,
required,
yeah.
so.
And I would think for the school it is too, so I'm sure it's covered, but, you just think of all these nightmare things that could happen to you.
Yeah, in the last few years, we've kicked a few out that have showed up to do electrical and then find out that there's no licensure, and then the one wasn't even allowed to do business in the state of Minnesota. I mean,
It's
nightmare
buyer
list can
beware.
almost go on.
Yeah,
But if you have a reputable company that's been like in the roofing business for the last 30
right,
years, odds
yeah,
are,
yeah, yeah.
especially like we use the same company that installed our roof, so there's no worries there.
Well, and I think, I guess what I feel like is if you're using someone you've always used, and if you've never required them to have a bond, then it's not a question that you're gonna ask them, because you trust them.
Yeah.
And then if something happens,
It's like Peterson Sheet Metal, we've had a long-standing
Yeah.
business with them for the last several years.
Yeah.
It's not something you're really worried about.
yeah.
We had, I think, a question last time about, how did I go? If the project's on the list, what's the repercussions if it doesn't get done? I look at the traffic flow and safety improvements, and I think we had talked about this a little bit, that I'm lukewarm about that one, in truth. Yes, in a perfect world, it'd be great to have it done, but that would be, I'm not saying safety's not a priority, but I don't know. I feel like a little bit, it needs a little massaging, maybe is where I'm going with that. But if we don't do that one, and we do something else that rises to the top, or we just run out of money, like, is that okay? How does that work? Because this is a lot of stuff. That's 6 different things we're gonna get done. And what if we don't?
Well, and that's what I said, they're gonna go into future years. You know what I
sure.
mean? We're certainly
they
not
have
gonna get
to.
them all done when the year we get the money.
For sure.
Yeah, I don't know the requirement, I mean, yeah, I don't know how to say anything about it, because
Yeah.
I would think that you get the bond, and then it's up to us to pick the projects or whatever, and the taxpayers can come after us if we don't complete our list. I don't see, it's not like FEMA where you have a specific grant money that's earmarked for this project, and you can't switch projects. It's gotta go to that project.
So, how about the state? Department of Education, because we have to send something to them.
The review and comment.
Yeah,
And I don't have an example of what that would
what I was thinking
detail,
about
but
is,
it is basically, at the 20th board meeting, basically you're just gonna approve a motion to move forward with Seth to submit review and comment for projects, blah, 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 totaling X number of dollars. So, but I can find out, because I think that's happened many times where you have all these projects and you have X dollars and you run out.
Yeah. Or I can even see, we thought it was a good idea at the time.
Yep.
Turns out it's maybe not what we wanted, because I think you had said there's supposed to be money in here for a little bit of planning. And so as you get into that planning piece, that's when you kind of tease out some of that stuff. And
But you're asking, can we remove a project and add something totally different?
You have to. It's gotta be, because we're funding the
Maybe.
dollar amount, not the
Yeah.
project.
I think it would have to
we
fall
can.
under the guise of upgrades and improvements to facilities and buildings.
yeah,
we got plenty of those.
Yeah, I don't think, yeah, but I will double check
But
what
it's probably more like
leeway
what
is.
Boyd was saying, is it'd be more answering to the voters.
yeah.
If we listed like, this is what we're doing, and then we don't do it.
And it's just a lot of stuff. And
You know, if we said we're not gonna do the
big
traffic
projects.
flow, but we're gonna put an outdoor jacuzzi in center field of the softball field, that might raise some eyebrows, you know, cause that's way out of the realm of.
But I think if we said, you're gonna get new bleachers, cause more people would appreciate those, or whatever. Would probably
Because they
find-
won't come down away from the wall.
Right,
But, you know, I mean, you know, and I guess that's a concern of mine too, but we kind of talked about that. I mean, I can't imagine that they could, you might have to submit something to the state and say, you know, we have this amount of money and, you know, once we, you know, once a study was done or whatever,
Find out.
but,
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
now, in my mind, and correct me if this is way too much of an oversimplification. So you go to the voters, it's like, okay, you want a roof that doesn't leak, you want windows that aren't gonna fall out and everything else. We have to have the building one. You want more computers, buses, everything else, okay, then you better fund the capital improvement one. If you want 17 kids in a classroom and other things like that, then you better fund the operating fund. Any one of those, I mean, if you don't want the operating fund, pay, but get ready for 30 kids in a classroom or something like that, or electives going away and things like that.
And one benefit of the operating referendum or levy, that's tied into the LOR, and that's the local optional revenue. That's board approved, which every year when you vote to do the max, it's about $740 per pupil. Let's say we pass another $500 operating levy. And 10 years down the road, we've watched our finances and all of a sudden we have a 25% fund balance. The board can take the part that they control, that LOR, and say, we're gonna reduce that this year down to $400. You know, so the board has that power as far as balancing the impact on your taxpayers, while ensuring that we're operating the building as best we can, you know, providing programs to kids. So it's a more of a burden percentage-wise on taxpayers, but it does give you that flexibility down the road. So once we restore our fund balance, and let's say we get an influx of kids and we're flush, you have that opportunity to say, all right, we don't need all these tax dollars. We can reduce it.
I'm just curious, once you go down, can you go back up?
You have, as long as you stay within that 740 whatever dollars, you get so much authority. And that would be redone in 10 years, and I'm trying to think where we are from the last time we renewed it, but. So that is a benefit too, is that the board would have some flexibility to
Yeah, you don't
adjust.
have to spend that, but that's where when we approve that levy,
Yep.
that's what that is,
Yep.
it's that maximum, so you can spend up to that.
Yep.
10 years. We're not
And
gonna
every year you have that authority when you
Right.
approve the levy. You don't
Yeah.
have to approve
really need it.
the max.
Right.
So, yeah. Any,
One other dynamic, have you heard any inklings from the state? Because the other part of this, if the state ups their funding, that changes them, that's the other part of the dynamic that would kick in. Because, again, from what I've been reading, every other outstate, school districts in basically in the same boat, some are even worse off, so, heard anything?
nothing's gonna happen this session so we have to wait for the next session. I don't know, what's the last word on the state budget and,
It always comes with stuff attached, is my complaint there, you know.
yes, and that's why we
up.
need to,
It was spent
That
for
is,
us
yep.
effectively already, you know, and then we look at the Twin Cities, for instance, and I know they're down there arguing for 6 and 7% increases on their teaching staff. You know, the unemployment benefits that now we're being forced to pay out. There's just so much that
Funding
comes
for it.
with that. We can't match 6 and 7% increases. You know, the unemployment's been a burden for us. I mean, what else is there? But, so I would not count on anything coming from the state that really is just coming free and clear of anything. It's
Without a
just-
mandate.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
gonna be
That
stuff.
isn't already being spent on something else. Yeah.
Yep. But I think that's something we need to, us folks in the outstate, not just superintendents and school board members, but just regular constituents need to start calling down there and say, hey, stop with the unfunded mandates for schools. 'Cause it's not, it sounds great when they say, oh, we're sending you this dollars, but you have to use it for this, this, and this. And if you can't, we're gonna take it back.
Well, they're political dollars, they're not practical dollars. That's the way I view it, and that's the unfortunate part of living in the debt.
Yeah. I just sent a letter to Senator Green talking about that, so.
So we sort of walked into a discussion about 1 and 2, for lack of a better term, but the operating in the building bond, or the capital projects in the building bond, the operating levy sort of seems to be the one that we're all not touching quite as, or embracing quite as.
In my mind, that's the hardest sell. So,
I'm concerned about doing more than two.
Do you offer the two like an either or situation, or do you offer the two in a conjunction, say we need both, lump them together and say this is our effort, not either or, because I think that's how the people will vote, or the public will vote.
Yeah, and that's where we might want to get more expert advice on, do we run it as one question?
Yeah.
It'd be easier to talk about tax impact.
Yeah.
This is a sample ballot question for the capital project levy.
Yep.
I feel that it goes way too much detail.
Okay.
Because if a voter's gonna sit there and the vote's gonna look at this.
I'm not gonna read that.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, you
Yep.
kidding me?
I agree with you.
So
When you say
here's-
the same thing,
yep.
that's way too much.
Yeah.
Two lines.
And when Matt Hammer emailed it to me, he said, it's a little wordy, but
A little?
yes.
If they give you, if it
Yep.
could be edited down to a third that
Yep.
size of a question.
Yeah.
Still encompass the necessary legal
Yep.
standpoint, then, you know, it would probably be,
Yep.
because I think, the average voter ain't gonna read that.
No. Not even the above average voter won't read that.
But I think
But these,
we have
this is the kind of
lawyers
information-
write those for us, because I think there's certain pieces that have to be in there stated a certain way.
Yes. This is.
If you
this
leave
is
it out
what we
and
need to-
void the
we
question,
need to
then,
Supply this kind of information to
Yeah.
people so they
Right.
understand what
Yes.
it is.
so I agree, if
Before
we
they
can
get
have
to the
fewer
ballot.
words
Yeah.
and,
They shouldn't
And
be
how
getting
you
to
get
the
into
ballot
read
and
that, I'm
learning.
not sure.
The
but-
message
Right.
needs to be
And I think
quite a lot.
the word technology even is kind of like, but there's other things I think you could say, like,
No.
to just
It-
draw people in.
Computers.
Including without
Yeah,
implication
curriculum,
costs,
which would be better
third
than
makers and
technology,
non-makers.
Yes.
yep. That's where we have less control of what the wording is in the question, but we have more control on how we sell it to the community. And that's where we have to do the big push to,
If you do a good sell, you should, it
Get
wouldn't
the
matter how
information.
long or short that.
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, if you do a good sell, they know what it is.
Like vote yes on number 2 or whatever it is. Yeah.
Does
You know,
anyone-
it could be, a book long, but as long as everybody's got a good understanding of what it is, the consequences, yes and no, they wouldn't have to really read it, they know what their vote is gonna be.
What, anybody know off the top of their head, I've been meaning to look this information up, like over the last, say, 2, 3, 4 elections. What is the voter turnout? Are we talking 1,000 people, 1,200, 2,000?
Oh, here?
I think Lake Lewis has, we're pretty high percentage-wise
I think we're
compared.
at 65%.
Something like
Number
that.
comes to mind,
Yeah.
but what is 65%? Is
What's,
that,
How many-
65% of what number?
well, that's households,
Yeah,
right?
that's
Registered, of registered voters, ain't it?
And then that would be a registered voter, so.
I mean-
Registered voters, yeah.
Or
Well, the county should have all those
Yeah, the
numbers.
auditor's
Yeah.
office
Yeah,
should have that.
there's historic, I was just
But it can't be
curious if
too much
anybody-
more than 1,200.
It's gonna be around 1,200,
Yeah.
I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure most of the elections are decided by 1,200 people.
And I think that's
Yep.
because we have the mail-in ballots, I think that's.
Yeah, that's a lot of phone calls.
Yep. You just have to pick the
Yeah, we
right
do mail.
one. Actually, you just have to pick the right 601.
And is this a 50% or pass?
Mhm.
I mean, 51, obviously. but-
.0001.
Corinne, your reticence last meeting, 2 days ago, was because you felt that this is gonna be difficult to get in, get running by August. Do you still feel that way, or have you thought about that, or?
No, I mean, yes and no. Yes and no. I think it's just I want to get there now. You know, like, I feel there's a lot of work to do, and I want to make sure we're keeping up and not waiting for decisions to be made. We know what we want to do, right? I feel like we're already kind of saying, yep, this is the direction we know we need to go, so.
How do we get there?
How do we get there? Who's on our team? Like, do we have a team assembled? Because, you know, it's gonna take more than just us sitting at the table here. So,
here's my question. Do we know what we're going to do?
Well, we have to do the bond.
Okay.
And I think we should do the capital projects
Okay.
and leave out the operating. Because the capital project will alleviate.
My only concern is if there's two, and they feel like they wanna go for something, they'll just take,
One or the other. Yeah.
they would take the bond, which we need.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that doesn't,
Then
But
we could come up with a sample ballot question incorporating
Both.
bond issue and the capital project.
I think that's a possibility.
That would be-
I'll double check with
I
Matt.
think that would probably be the best option.
and then it would just be one question.
But
Possibly.
I don't know if it'll pass, but we don't know if it'll pass
Yeah.
anyway.
So our immediate
You know.
next step would, at the May 20th meeting, approve moving forward with review and comment.
And that's all we have to figure out right now, is just to move forward. We
Yep.
don't necessarily, we don't
For
have to
the-
figure out the ballot.
for the-
Because like I
Right.
get 6 of one, half dozen of another.
I think the review and comment, we need to say, these are their main projects that we want to do. I think we need to, I think that's part of it.
But do we have to
And a
attach
dollar
dollar?
amount,
Oh, we
I
do.
believe so. I think you have to at least have a overall dollar amount.
Well, that was what I was wondering, if it was over an all or if it was attached to each one.
isn't there a timeline
Probably
somewhere?
each one.
Or maybe I'm. looking at-
June,
That's June. for
June
that
has, the review and comment has to go to the state in June.
But that's the capital, that's the building spot, not the,
When we
any
had to
other
have-
question.
I believe the capital projects is part of the review and comment.
Oh, it is?
I believe so.
So do you
Well,
know,
there's a specificity to those two, which you are being held accountable for, so I think both of those would have to be approved by the state.
Yeah, I didn't know if it
And
did
then
or
the
not.
operating referendum, which I think is our sales pitch, which is, we're not really going in here with discretion with your dollars. We're going in here with stuff that you're telling us we need to do. and
Right.
This is
Yeah.
it.
Well, Corinne and I were just mentioning that, you know, like with the capital projects one, you might be better off
Right.
saying computers for staff and students and money for curriculum, you know, rather than technology, just,
Simple
know.
language.
Well, when do we have to figure out
yeah,
how many
So-
questions and what the questions are? Do we have time
We have,
for that?
we have time for that.
Okay.
okay.
We have time for
Then
that.
we don't have to
what
worry
month
about
is the deadline?
Wasn't it
Review and
like,
comment is June.
June.
Ballot preparation of some sort is August, isn't it?
Yeah,
I thought it was August.
well,
So then we would have like essentially August, September, October.
Yeah, to actually get the
message.
I'm a little.
so the next,
on the one or two
But I think we should.
combined ballot questions or
Yep.
individual?
I
Like,
guess,
in 6
I
of
guess
one,
I'd
Well,
have to
dozen of
see
another.
what they put
Yeah.
together.
Yep.
Yeah. And
the
I-
first thing, what projects? Now I listed 6 projects. Whether it's 3.5 or
yeah,
4 million.
I'm okay with those projects, but if you're asking me. But
I'm
you know, I
asking
always give
everyone,
my opinion.
yes.
Whether
I
I know
have-
what I'm talking
yeah.
about or not.
We
And
have 6
I
people,
would
we need a
also-
majority of them to
I
say
would
what.
also like to know, like Corinne does, can we
Yeah.
go back and say, we decided not to do this, we want to put, even if we have to get approval for it
Yep.
from the state.
So Lynn, do you want to put a 10% on each
Yeah.
dollar
No, it's
amount?
closer
Or
to 15.
15
It's close, it's
on each
between 10 and
project amount?
15.
To get to your 4 million.
Yeah,
And
Well,
that would-
knowing, like
did you
said,
already
that
do
the
that,
board
ma'am?
conditions-
When I did the math of 15%, just a second here, I have it. When I was reading it, it was $4,035,350. That was 15%. So it's between, I don't know what it would be. You could back it off a little bit so it came out to an even 4 million,
Yep.
or whatever, But if you applied 15% to each project, that's what you would get.
And that's something when I get a hold of Matt
Yeah,
and Brent, I'll say,
yeah.
this is what the board is looking at. They're looking at, for sure, these projects. They're thinking 4 million might be a better
More
dollar
appropriate because of
amount.
the lag time.
And they're the ones that put the review and comment together. They're the ones that
Right.
have to justify what
Right.
goes to the
Yeah.
state. So they would say, it's a little exorbitant, or
Yeah.
we can.
Yeah.
um,
And I guess my logic is to say you've got inflation during that time and plus you have the, the unknowns.
I'm kind of with Corinne, and we can use the traffic flow and safety improvements as the buffer, so to speak.
The last project on the list.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
yes, some better signs, for sure. Things like that, but it's $1 million, it's gonna be $1 million once you do your math.
Yeah.
Which,
Yeah, but it's
but what we have is.
But it-
$1 million
also-
over the next 30 years.
Yeah.
Yes.
You
We
have
need to look at it
yeah.
that
That's what
way.
I was looking at. It's
When they
like,
built
yes.
this building, and everyone's looking at $8 million, well, we're over 30 years with that original
Yep.
$8 million.
But to me, that one is more of it's an add-on, like,
Investment when you look at the
it's
costs for these
it's not
individual-
staying true to the original structure. Roof, yes, windows, yes, sidewalks, yes, but this is a change. And so,
Like an addition.
yes,
I would say it's an upgrade and an improvement for safety.
yes,
Because
And
we
it's-
didn't, because we're
it's
dropping
basically-
kids off
Yeah.
on the
Times
north side.
things
There is
have
no
changed.
sidewalk.
yeah,
Circumstances have changed.
Yeah.
There's,
How we use the building.
could be 6 to a dozen cars lined up there at the end of the day, and you get 10, 12 kids running out.
right.
Um,
And it's
No,
like
I get
herding
it.
cats.
And it doesn't seem like a lot. It's not all day long, but it only takes one kid to jump out in front of the car, and we're gonna say it.
I've put up signs since I've started here. I've never taken any away. We won't add it. More signs.
Yeah,
People don't read
You
the
know,
signs.
split
That's
that
why the
property.
barriers and the things that they have to
yes,
And
run
I
into
guess
is what.
my thought is what that does, it is an improvement to the traffic flow, but it's also accommodating the changes that we have done in the use of the building, like adding the daycares and those kinds of things. And in 30 years, you've discovered some things that maybe didn't work real well
Yeah.
about the
and
building.
like I said,
That's just my
No, that's-
opinion,
it's
I'm
legitimate,
not,
yeah.
I'm not, I'm just,
The road changes you're talking about are gonna be very expensive,
Mhm.
because that entire road has to be
yeah,
redone. It doesn't have enough strength to do what you're
Yeah.
asking it to do right now.
It might not be the architectural design. It might just be adding a curb and some sidewalks on the north side. Maybe putting some kind of barrier and getting rid of the construction
you
barriers.
could put a
and
curb
It could
out
be,
there.
it might, yeah.
I mean, it could be greatly reduced from what we're thinking.
There might not be a grassy berm in between it or anything like that. It might just be a
more to more.
something.
We always split that in two and concentrate on the one up front.
Yeah.
Because I'm here to tell you, if you're driving a bus, the number of kids we've had jump out in front of a bus through a snowbank, the number of times we've dynamited the brakes because a little 4 or 5-year-old did something strange out there. And this year it's been really good, well, actually since last year, because we separated in,
Put those barriers.
parents are no longer dropping their kids off out in the parking lot, they're using that south loop over here.
For the most part.
Yep.
There's still
There's still some.
some.
You still
Habits
have
die
a
hard,
lot of
but
people that park there.
Well, and you have people that park in the parking lot,
Yeah.
there's gonna
Good
be,
idea.
even little kids
Just
that
come up with some
ride
kind of traffic
bicycling.
flow too, into the east end of the high school hallway where the daycares come in.
Yeah, that's part of this. Well,
And,
that
and there goes the,
Yep.
yeah.
that was
Yeah.
the question
And
of
that's where
where's
my
the
concern is.
turnaround.
I feel like there's a lot of discussion around this.
Do we know
And you gotta
for-
sell meat,
for a fact
we have
how
to
much
sell
traffic goes?
Everybody.
everybody.
Yeah.
Cause it's, a quarter of what we're asking for is something I feel we don't have a good grasp on ourselves.
Like
That's
we
just how
can't
I
come
feel.
to an agreement of what we need, let alone ask
Yeah.
for it from everyone else.
And I think there is a need, yes, there's probably more than one solution. I don't know.
Yeah,
Well, by the time we get to that part of the project, which we've already now pushed down to number 6 anyway, who knows what our
See
population's
where I
gonna
put
be,
it
where
on
our
the list?
daycare's
Yeah.
gonna be and everything else. So
Yeah.
it's just gonna be a totally different
Yeah.
ballgame
Yeah.
probably.
The buffer.
Yeah. the
So I
buffer.
think that
It's a
goes
better
back to the
word for
question,
it.
what
Yep.
we
The
change.
slush one maybe?
Yep.
That sounds irresponsible.
Sorry to be a,
Well, I think we have to do something. It might not be
no,
at
I mean,
this
I think
level
that
yet.
everyone's opinion
Yeah.
is really valuable, and I see your point as well. It's gonna be harder to sell that than
Because we
probably
talked
the
about it out there.
sidewalks.
yeah.
And some people won't even think the sidewalks are important. I do. Someone's gonna trip and break their
Yeah,
neck.
we gotta address the side.
Yeah,
And I think we're better off doing it, just,
doing it.
than patching it if we possibly can.
There's a lot of,
Okay.
yeah.
I mean, it's, yeah.
Well, it's the type of thing where if we get the bond, if it passes, okay, then we can replace the sidewalks. If it doesn't, yeah, we're out there with the concrete saw cutting it up and
Exactly.
patching.
Yep.
I mean, it has to get done one way
Yeah.
or another.
Yeah.
It just depends on how we want it done.
And I did notice I was looking at, maybe someone else did too, but in the sidewalk, it says replacement of curb where needed.
Mhm.
So it's not replacing all the curb. But it should take the concrete up to the curbs. Who knows how long it'll stay there in northern Minnesota.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's a number floating around is what you're looking for, right?
Okay.
400,000 a year, $4
And we
million.
have 6 projects. Number 6 is a little questionable.
Well,
we
something
wanna know
we
what-
can put off. I don't
Yep.
think it's a questionable project, but we can certainly put that as number 6.
I think I'd focus, yeah, I don't know, I guess I'd focus more on the, like the really needed projects and $400,000 a year as a thing. And these are the projects we're really gonna focus on and not get wrapped up in specifying,
Yeah.
earmarking
Yeah.
money for specific projects. I mean, the windows and roof, we know those have to get done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and actually, that masonry, that
And
outside
the brickwork.
masonry is bad.
Yeah, yeah. There's like 4 things that have to get
Yeah.
done, whether we.
1 through
get it
4,
or not.
yeah. And I don't know how we can figure out a way to pay for them without a building plot.
1 through 5, you mean?
It would not be easy.
I think 1 through 4 are, we
Are
could,
very,
we
very
could
neat.
patch sidewalks if we
Okay,
had
that's
to.
what
I
you
don't
meant.
want to, but we could.
Okay. Thoughts on the athletic complex?
I don't feel it should be another question.
So could we wait until the next state election and do another bond?
You can do a bond. There's 5 times during the year you can do.
Right, but you know what I'm saying is that if we waited and tagged it on a year where
Specific
there
to
was
the
other
athletic
elections,
stuff.
yeah, specific to athletic, and then say, we're working on these, and now we, in 2 more years, we want to start working on this. And then, I don't know, what does that feel like for people?
Is it gonna hold up till then?
Well, I'm sure there's gonna have to be some repair done on it, but we do have that $70,000 FEMA money, right, coming in?
That's
Even
at the
if-
very least, right? That's the way I
Right,
understand it.
right.
Yep.
But I mean, we could do some repairs with that.
Yep.
Yeah, I would postpone that till we see how the public reacts to the big projects that we
Yeah.
got. I mean, if it's tooth and nail, I think those athletic things need to be, like Kurt doesn't want to hear that, but needs to be set aside for a little bit, It's functional at the moment, and I don't know if we can, we talked about cheaper solutions to the pole vault pit, for example, other opportunities there. And it's just what you're saying about the sidewalks. I think we can get away with some cheaper stuff. I'd like to do it right, but I think you could
Well, and
figure out a way
I
to
guess
make-
one of the reasons that I say that is I'm not sure in the long run, it ends up cheaper to patch, like a sidewalk, to patch and patch and patch and patch. That's my feeling. It's getting so a lot of it's in pretty bad shape. But that's just my feeling. But there's always gonna be ups and downs, eaves and sidewalks up here. And I like things all neat, so it really bothers me, all the patches.
But this is the total cost if we did all of the
I didn't-
stuff in the list.
Yes.
Because we
And
could take
it
off
might
like
just
the
be,
bathroom
let's fix
facilities
the
and
football field, it might just be the 1.2.
Right.
I think that was basically the football field and the track. Whereas the support
That
spaces
wasn't-
was the bathroom and concessions and all that stuff.
And the stands and the bleachers and.
The track is the biggest thing. Eventually, we're not gonna be able to run meets on it at some point.
There was a comment in one of those listening sessions, so I'm echoing the constituent. Somebody sat in here and said, as we were talking about this last time with the track, and this cost came up, for the fixing of the track. And that was the threat sort of is, hey, if you want to hold meets here, and they immediately responded, well, that'll pay for a lot of gas. And, I think that's sort of the public's thought on that, unfortunately, and that was a quick response. So I don't think it takes long to get to that notion that you look at a football field or a track event, how many of those do you have per year on that surface? It's quite a bit of money. $1 million to replace something that we use. We're going to a abbreviated football schedule anyway, I think, aren't we able? But traditionally, we don't play any more than 5 games a year there, right? Isn't that about right?
5 to 8, isn't? Oh, home games? Yeah,
Yeah.
probably
4.
4 to 5.
And then the track meet is
Yeah.
once a year, plus if we get lucky enough to get districts or something. So,
Yeah.
and I'm just talking for the public. I'm playing devil's advocate here, but I can see their response to that. It pays for a lot of gas.
Yep, but if you look at what money our society pours into athletics and youth sports, it's important. And there's communities that pile a lot of money into it because they feel it's important for the youth. And it attracts kids to schools. In some areas, I don't know, we're kind of isolated up here, but I don't know if we would draw a whole bunch of kids just because we have a first-class track. But
We have a first-class
might.
hockey rink, and we're still losing kids.
Yeah, but I think we also have to recognize we hold that up here, athletics in our communities, so.
So many other things that are, so critical to the building, we just have a hard time.
Yep. Yeah, I would
And
not,
it's
I would,
that I don't support it, but
Yeah.
wow, it's hard to put an ask forward for that when we need so many other basics.
the only option I would be comfortable with is to make it a standalone question and leave it up to the voters to
And that
approve it.
really probably is the most democratic.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Okay,
you know.
here it is, guys.
And I would hope people would take it serious enough that they consider each question, and whether it's 2 questions or 3 questions to,
And if you did a standalone question, would you want the full amount? And just like that debate of
Yep.
doing it right and being, or just doing
Um,
the track and the,
I would focus on the track
Field.
and the football field fixes. I think we have an option for the pole vault. I'm not sure how much more that would, if that's, I should just look.
In my mind, just from what he was describing, it just seems like the pole vault shouldn't cost that much.
We just really,
Unless you
have
go
the
and
box
put that
has to
track
be,
on with
yeah.
the track material.
right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Then it's expensive.
But you talked about the ability to grind that up fairly readily with equipment you guys have locally. We have local contractors who could probably address what we need. It might take a coat of tar, but, maybe it's a coat of putting that rubber matting down and flattening it out, making a better lip in there. We got a bid from a couple of locals right on the concrete effort. So we, would look at that specifically on its own.
So the 1.2 million, would replace the existing running track with a new surface. And that's just the surface. I don't think that's doing the
That's not the
subgrade stuff.
subgrade.
There's no groundwork,
So-
but would we'd want to do that,
You
wouldn't we?
have to.
Yeah,
I mean, you'd be, with the legal
Or else
term
you're
is
just
putting lipstick
putting
on a
away.
pig if you,
Yeah.
right.
if you would resurface it.
So then what would the cost be with, right, okay.
Quite a bit more.
Yes. You said the track is 1.3 million?
1.2.
Well, almost
that-
1.3.
1,268,000, and that's the running track, new surface, regrade existing football field, install irrigation system for greater control. I'm not sure what percentage that irrigation system.
That might include the subgrade. I mean, that's an awful lot for it to not include the subgrade.
I'm just reading what it says here.
Yeah.
It just says track with a new surface. So,
That's what it says.
yep.
So that would be a question for them is,
Page 9, yeah.
I don't know.
And that does include the pole vaulting, the long jump, the shot put and discus areas. And to do anything with the surrounding is another,
Is the additional
is the additional
650.
600, 655, yeah.
But there's other funding options for that, right? That's the LTFM. that we
Which
could
piece
use
is that?
For the support spaces, could we use that for that? Pieces of
Maybe
it?
at some point, I think we have other
But it's
priorities that
lower
would
down on the list.
be lower
Lower
down
down
on the
on the
list, yeah. We've always wanted to have running water and bathrooms over there since I've been here.
That's kind of like the traffic flow thing. Okay, we've done it for 30 years,
Yeah.
and there used to be twice as many kids in the building, and now we're looking at doing stuff.
Well, the traffic flow, I think we've been lucky for 30 years that.
But that's never been a main drop-off area on the north side before, has it?
No,
No.
no, it used to be,
That's different.
In the past with the buses, it was never really.
Used to be teacher parking.
Right, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But even for parents, it wasn't a drop-off. Everybody used to just go to the parking lot.
yeah,
I mean, the south side.
and I think the ones that go to the north like it because it's actually a lot quicker.
It works easier.
It's easier. You just pull up, kids jump out. You're not dodging cars and kids running in the parking lot. It's
Having to
just,
do it in the parking lot, you're like 2 or 3 wide, sometimes
Yeah.
they're close.
Lined up in front of the window waiting for mom's dad to show up and then
Yeah.
run out and.
Yeah. Yeah, if we could have parents all pick up on that north side and just have the kids and the buses
What I
on
noticed
there
is
would be
it's-
perfect, but
the later pickups are often out here.
Yeah.
You know, from activities.
I've dropped the kids off on the north side, but I can't remember. I think they always had something going on.
So you get 'em
I
up
never did
front.
pick 'em up. But
drop off is
But
quick
walk
because
home.
there's
Great.
just,
They,
And the one thing, I kind of like the idea of either the Jersey barriers or some sort of thing to delineate between somebody going around. I prefer to keep it a one-way. You go two-way traffic and you cause more issues, but you have the people who are pulling off and then leave an actual lane for the people to go around those people. Now, the problem you're gonna run into, is the person in the minivan in the front who's watching Junior walk into the building is gonna tick off the other 5 cars that you have lined up if you have a barrier there and you can't get out, because now everyone's waiting on the first guy. So that's the downfall of that method.
I'd be the minivan you're waiting on.
And I think the sidewalk connecting connecting those two, would go a long ways, even if we put in a localized curb type thing in front of those two doors. That would also go a long ways, because now if people have to wait to get to one apron or the other to let the kids up, well, if you had the sidewalk, then.
And then they wouldn't be trying to walk down the street when it's crappy out.
Yeah.
Right.
Get them off the.
Get them off the
road.
traffic.
But you'd have to
It
go
would
down
open
to the
up
third
even a
door
wider
too,
spot to use
where the
in that
daycare is.
road.
That, actually, I mean, that one's, I would think that's a relatively easy, I mean, that's a local contractor type fix in my mind right there, but.
Well, and I think those walking surfaces were addressed, the additional ones, I believe, in Widseth's walking surfaces.
The additional sidewalks on the
Yeah.
other side. Yep.
Was a part of it.
Curbing. Yep.
Yeah.
That answer your question?
Yep.
Okay.
So I think I understand the consensus on the bond referendum and the projects levy. We're gonna hold off on the operating referendum to a future, if there's a future need in a couple years, if we're still struggling financially with declining enrollment and.
Well, that's why I
operating
wonder
budget.
if we need to make, we have to make this decision right now, because, I don't know, in my mind, put all the questions on there, let her walk and see what happens. I mean, it all depends on how we sell it or present it, and again, it's the.
That would be a good public relations expert to confer with, because I think there's a threshold where if you ask for too much,
Yeah,
people are gonna say,
I think it's better to give them,
there's gotta be a balance, and I think you
Yeah.
need to,
you give them too many
Well, you're
choices,
gonna
you might not get any of them.
you know,
Give people
a
like
$4 million
that
investment
and
after, in a
Well, if you did all three,
facility after 30 years
it
is
would
not
be this much
asking
for all my properties.
anything
Mike
out of
said it was
line.
gonna be over 8,000.
The
if we
capital
did all three
projects,
at the
getting
max,
technology,
you know.
freeing up that
Yep.
dollars in our general fund. I think people
that's why
will
I
be
like
able to understand the need for that.
Potentially.
Keep in mind, there's the
The
traditional,
bond and the,
you go with three things with the expectation they're gonna turn
I
you
mean,
down
it's still
for
gonna be
Yep.
the
at
same
least
amount,
one.
Yep.
they're just gonna see it as
So.
one though,
you-
instead of.
The only thing,
Nickel and
I
dime,
can't remember
nickel
who
and
said
dime,
this,
kind of
but the
two.
fear for someone that all three are gonna pass are gonna make more people vote no.
Deb Linder, or Deb,
No,
Debbie
it was
Anderson.
someone on the board.
But I
I
had-
think maybe Corinne and I talked about it a little bit about, you know, if they're looking at their total tax bill and they're saying, ooh, if all three of these pass,
Yeah,
you know,
Yep.
where if you
yeah.
give them less, you know, and it's gonna make a lot of difference
Yep.
to ask for 4 million versus 7 million, I would think.
Well, and I think just confidence
Yeah.
in us right now,
Yeah.
maybe it would be a tougher sell.
well, I could, I mean, it would be for Tim Lyon, if I own 3 different properties or 4 different properties. Yes, I could be able to pass it on to if I'm renting it out to my, you know, tenants or whatever, but it's a lot of money, to these people. So I look at the $100 threshold, I think it'd be way easier to pass something that, it's gonna up your taxes by $68 or whatever, give me a better number. Now we're into the 3-digit number, and that's not terrible, 127, I think is what you said at the end, but that's,
120, and that's my
that's all
math.
3.
yeah, but that's.
No, that's just the 2. That's the bond and the capital
And the
projects.
capital.
One twenty-seven for a
recommended.
$200,000.
Again, I would.
Property.
Property.
Yeah. Through this before.
And I'm looking at at War Road passed their operating levy, and that was over $150 on a household with market value of 200,000.
Just for their operating levy.
That was just for the operating levy. And they asked for $460 per adjust, and they're twice our size, so they would generate a lot more money than we would have,
Yeah.
or something like that. But
Well, more affluent community, maybe. Yeah.
They're behind their school.
But I think, wasn't it Sheena that mentioned that the one in Rosal failed and now they can't finish the school?
Nope, it passed,
They went
but
over
it was for
budget.
the dollar amount, and then
They
the
ran out of money.
COVID prices went up and
Right.
blew their budget.
I couldn't remember, but I thought maybe did they
Morrow's
ask?
took 2 times to pass.
Yeah,
failed
I
the
was
first
thinking that Sheena had said something about the rows, but maybe it was the dollar
That was
amount.
the
That's
deal,
fine.
they didn't ask for enough money, like,
Uh-huh.
or
So that's what I'm worried
they
about
asked
is-
for it without, taking into account the 20%.
If we're only
Yeah.
asking for that amount,
And
and
we
we're
saw
kind of
that.
pinning this.
Yeah,
not doing
exactly.
this on, like, this one ends up this.
What's that?
Prices are going down now. We're
Oh,
fine.
right.
Should we do a those in there?
Deep River didn't pass.
You know what I
And then
mean?
Badger Greenbush has got
Like-
one going similar to ours right now for the exact same reasons. I know they've got a line of credit that they're dipping into. So, I mean,
just
it's out there, it's
ridiculous.
everybody, it's not just us.
No, it is everybody. Did we settle on the athletic complex piece?
I think we should wait on that, but that's just my feeling.
I agree with Lynn on that.
I concur.
Okay.
Or I could have said requested one of the two, but
Yeah, like if we did, yeah.
And as far as amounts go, we still kind of round numbering it at about $7 million we're gonna ask for if everything goes properly. 4 and 3.5,
it's only to ask all the questions.
That was all 3.
right? Oh, if we ask
If
for
we ask
two, right?
for 2 of
Yeah.
them. But
Yeah.
I would propose we just ask for the 6 projects and make it like 4 million. That's what I would think, but you're gonna check that out.
And not
with
include the
Seth.
capital projects levy?
No, but what I'm
Oh,
saying,
Just for the,
yeah, just for
just for
the
the bond
building
part.
levy,
Yeah.
building bonds, and then ask for the capital levy as well.
Again, if we don't have to decide on this tonight, let's wait till we get our gurus, hired gurus, and ask them what they
The
recommend
numbers.
we should do.
Okay.
Because I would tend to go with them. I'm guessing on stuff, so.
Okay.
To me,
I mean,
it's
that's just
logical
my
to go with
feeling.
3 questions and let the voters do it. I get why you wouldn't want to do that, but if they say that, yeah, you definitely don't want to do that, okay, go with what they say. That's why we pay them the big bucks. Right now, but
Got on speed dial?
I'm thinking
He's asking.
they're pretty quick when they come back.
Well, you wanted to make sure we got all this in a timely manner.
So I will reach out to them tomorrow. Do we need to set up another meeting, or what do we need to, what do you need to come in on Monday and
Does that make sense?
give me
I mean,
approval?
and that's just my suggestion, so if nobody else wants to wait and see what they want to say, I mean, I'm not okay with whatever everyone else wants to do too, so.
Well, we got the
No,
time to
I
do
wanna
it,
wait
right?
and see what they say.
But we're gonna
I
vote
want
on
to
the
wait.
20th.
On the 20th,
or at least
you
let the
have to give
public know.
approval to move forward with review and comment.
But we don't have to have our set
You don't,
amount.
we need to have a ballpark figure,
We have to go to
Well,
what
I'll
our
check
big ask
with
is gonna
Seth,
be.
yeah.
but it doesn't, I'll call and find out. I think you have a little bit of leeway before you actually develop your questions and stuff. But at some point, we're gonna have to say, this is what we're gonna do, and move forward. And the big thing is, on the 20th, we need to just let Brent
Say
know
we're
that he
going
needs
for
to
it.
do the review and comment.
And so what's the question? Like, we're good with building bond, we're good with capital. Is it the question of whether or not to do operating? Because I think I'm firm on my stance on that, regardless of what they say. I think I'm firm. That was you like, you're so terrible.
Wait, to do the capital projects
Have two-
and the bond? Or to have 2 questions, or
Or-
to pick 2
I don't
of-
care how they're assembled,
She just wants those 2, not all 3.
Yeah,
not the operating. I don't
Yes.
think I'm gonna change my mind on that. That's my gut.
We could have a split vote, though, it's okay.
Yeah.
We can have one of those.
that's true, that's true. But no, at the
But I was just
moment, that's
wondering
where
what-
I'm at too.
I am too, as well.
But you
I
wanna
think we
hear
should do
from
the.
them, or?
Yes.
I mean, sure.
I think we need their confirmation on an amount
Yep.
for the building bond,
Before me.
and their recommendation on whether it should be one question or two or that kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yep.
And if they recommend that we should do a third question on the athletic, you know,
Oh, legit.
because that's totally, to me, a separate, you know, people shouldn't confuse that with what we're asking for otherwise. But I think I would rather wait on that. But that's just my feeling, and I hate to, I know that the athletic people would like to have it done, but I also
But I'd still
know
like their
that,
opinion on it.
Yeah.
What they think if we added it as a
Yeah.
separate
My
question.
gut, my gut says it wouldn't pass, but watch.
yeah.
We get nothing else, but.
Get the athletic complex.
We got a full outfit.
Yeah, exactly. We're hosting track meets every week.
But I do like the idea of like putting it to the voters. It is
Yeah.
their decision. It
Yeah.
is their,
Yeah,
And separate than
dollars
the
are
really
going.
necessary, the really
No, I agree on that
like
one.
you
critical
said,
building
Wayne, it's-
repair.
it's what they
Yeah.
want.
Yeah, I mean, and I see Corinne's point. I also see the benefit, in my mind, that's the ideal way to do it. Now, I also recognize the potential danger in doing it that way, and that's why I'm willing to wait for the pros to
Okay,
get their advice.
all right.
Are we gonna try to meet before the 20th? I guess that's where I was wondering, like, is it where we need to
Necessary?
meet again? Do we need to hear them? Or we just have you ask questions
And then give the information to us so
Yeah,
we're prepared to vote.
I think that would suffice. I mean, it's not like we're gonna vote on anything necessarily tonight anyway, right?
not tonight, but the
No,
20th.
I can,
Yeah.
share out some information that we will include in the working session. So, but you'll have it ahead of time to consider it and.
Hopefully they don't go all lawyer on us and go, well, it depends on what you want. You could go either way. It's like, no, we're hiring you to tell us which way to do this.
I don't take that.
Okay, what else is on the agenda?
Thing. Oh, Donovan Group.
Okay, we finished our first one, and then, yeah, it's all, we've covered all the discussion items.
Okay.
Except Donovan Group.
Wasn't the Donovan group?
To use them or not.
Yeah, we want
I thought we'd kind of,
I would like to use them just because,
Yeah.
look at all the questions we have.
yep,
They have
Yeah, I
experience
think
with
we
it.
need the support.
I do too.
I don't think we have staff that have enough time
The
to
support, the
dedicate to
guidance,
make.
you know, instead of us
Yeah.
trying to figure out on our own what to do,
Yeah.
they'll just tell us.
oh, yeah, I guess I was,
And we're already half through May, so
Price is getting
now we're
cheaper.
down to
Yeah.
1,200. 12,000, so.
So, do we need to kind of, maybe establish a budget, or how much money do we have? And that'd be a question, like,
Cause it was what, 2,000 a month?
2,000,
Was
yeah.
there,
plus
was
there's kind of like an à la carte, I think, so at some point,
Oh, yeah.
you know, if we ask them to do more, they're gonna charge more. Like
There were
videos and
three
stuff.
options. The a la carte was the most expensive one.
and that was 15 grand, I thought, flat fee.
It came out to like, that would be over 12 months, it's like 30-some thousand.
I don't
The
remember.
2,000 is, that's pretty precise. And I sent out, what,
And that included the plan of
that's
what happens.
weekly meetings with them. I mean, they have it nailed down each month. We're gonna do A, B, C, D.
And weren't they doing some newspaper articles and some stuff like that?
Yep, writing campaign
Lots of
and,
stuff.
That was,
You know,
I don't remember
meet
the
and greet.
details of it, but I remember that was the one
Yeah.
you
We're setting those
recommended, and I
kind of things
remember at the
and letting us
time,
know
it's
those
like I
things.
concurred, so
okay,
we're still going with that.
Yeah.
Starting June 1st.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I mean,
well,
Starting June
Or do you
1st.
need to have them earlier than that?
I would like to start May 13th, quite honestly.
Okay.
I mean, I
Then
think we
we
have
have
some
till
things,
November.
we have some things we can be working on right
Okay.
now.
So let's go rate it, yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that we need to get rolling.
Probably sooner rather than later.
Don't wanna be stingy, but no, I think it's time.
Yeah.
Because part of this too is once we get rolling, the Donovan Group people and Ellers and Widseth we'll have a meeting with all of them involved to kind of lay out a plan, so. Well, I think I have a direction,
Good.
I think.
Did you get any cookies today? I can
I
still
did.
smell them.
I had to go to both lounges and take one.
Okay, turn that off.
Anything else? We'll call the meeting.
You see you have a direction. Bill.